I'll be using a blue carrier instead of the factory tactical black during this video so that you can see what we're doing. Watch the upper right corner to quickly pan to major steps in this video. Now let's get started by choosing the position for your sidearm in the carrier. Place the sidearm firmly against the registration plates while moving it up and down to get a good grip. Trial mount the first pin so that it touches both the front of the trigger guard and the bottom of the pistol. A lock washer between the pin and the side plate is a good idea, especially for heavier pistols. Keep the screw loose for now so the pin can freely rotate. This check is just to confirm that you have good contact with the registration plates and a good grip. Hold the side plates so that they are roughly parallel. Notice that the width lock's not in sufficient contact with the left side plate. Its mode must be changed from narrow to wide. There is a dedicated video regarding mode changing, but let's go through this quickly. Separate the side plates and remove the width lock. For wide mode, the wide portion of the width lock must be in contact with the left side plate when reassembled. The metal portion of the width lock always goes between the registration plates and the width lock gripping plates. The pivot pin can be started from either the top or the bottom of the carrier. Be sure it also passes through the hole in the width lock. Leave the width lock screws loose in preparation for the next step. Now place the pistol back into the carrier and close the plates and hold them in a relatively parallel position. Tighten both width lock screws. This establishes a rough working setting in preparation for lock installation. These plates are parallel enough in preparation for the next step. Good anchor placement considers both gun position and location of the shroud for the lock. Trial fit the anchor as close to the front inside of the trigger guard as possible. The three lugs of the anchor always face away from the side plate. The anchor is the only part which must always be used with a lock washer. The lock washer is always placed between the anchor and the side plate. A properly installed lock washer greatly reduces the possibility of a slightly loose anchor causing a failure to unlock condition. It also prevents anchor detachment and loss of firearm control. Do another quick check for sidearm positioning. Be sure that the anchor is not in contact with the trigger guard. There must be at least 2 holes available on either side of the anchor on at least one row of holes. Pick a lock shaft whose long arm appears to be long enough to have the side plates held in parallel when the shaft is in position. Locate the proper hole for the shaft by looking through the closed side plate opposite the anchor and seeing where the center of the anchor is. That's the same hole that you used for the shaft. When the shaft's held in position as shown, the side plate should be roughly parallel. That kind of assures that you've got the right length shaft. Attachment of the trigger guard stop is straightforward, but it's critically important that it be done right. Ensure that the stop set screw lies flat on the shaft by aligning the hex key and the shaft as shown. Don't let the shaft stick outside of the trigger guard stop. It must be flush or slightly recessed. The set screw should be tightened very firmly, but use caution. Very excessive over-tightening can distort the trigger guard stop and possibly cause it to fail. A properly tightened stop will not be significantly distorted, but it will resist a heavy pull as a test. Engage the anchor with the trigger guard stop. Keep the stop from rotating while tightening the anchor screw. Rotate the stop in and out of lock a few times to check for easy cycling. Perform another fit test with the pistol. Engage the lock to be sure that it operates properly. Inspect the trigger guard stop and anchor carefully to be sure that they are fully engaged as shown in the illustration. Choose a lock lever that best supports your intended use. The 2-tab version is best used for deep undercover and gloved use. We recommend the 1-tab lever as your default selection. It can be oriented to protrude from either side of the shroud. It's more aggressor resistant and requires less muscle memory to operate. The level 3 shroud requires 2 distinct motions to unlock the carrier. Level 2 requires only 1 motion to unlock. With one exception, both lock shrouds install the same way. Place your chosen lock lever over the lock shaft. The level 2 shroud can be oriented in either direction. The level 3 shroud should have its finger guard pointed toward the muzzle of the sidearm. Both shrouds need 2 holes, one on each side of the lock shaft. The holes must be aligned along one of these sets of rows. Mount your chosen shroud with half-inch screws. Only moderate torque is needed on your wrench, and no lock washers are needed. Always do a quick function check before moving on. Make sure the trigger guard stop and anchor are fully engaged when the lock lever is in the full lock position. With your sidearm locked into the carrier, loosen both screws of the width lock. This allows the action springs to pull the side plates to their best position. This also eliminates unnecessary stresses. Now tighten the width lock screws for the last time. Use very firm pressure. While doing this, hold the carrier in your other hand with only light pressure. Don't squeeze the plates. While inspecting this last step, you might notice that the side plates go noticeably out of line. The fitting for this Glock 17 is a great example. In this case, this degree of non-parallelism is totally fine, as long as the lock functions. If your sidearm is still loose like this, it's time to put in a second registration pin. Install this pin on the same side as the first registration pin. I'm inclined personally to always install the second registration pin. There's a lot more detail in the instruction manual about placement of registration pins. Simply put, the second registration pin should be put almost anywhere underneath the trigger guard. One place to avoid, however, is the concave area right next to the grip of a pistol. A pin in that location will inhibit your draw. The use of a lock washer is almost always a great idea with a registration pin. An exception may be when fitting very narrow pistols in narrow mode. In that case, the extra thickness of a washer may interfere with good closure. Final positioning and setting of the pins is done by holding the locked carrier in this position and then rotating them toward the muzzle of the pistol. Now firmly tighten the screws for both registration pins. Left-handers will need to keep the pins from rotating during this process. Also double check the tightness of the anchor screw. Now do a quick fit and lock function check before going on to select your desired carry mode.